Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the NFL Brekkie Show post-Week 17. Laz and I had debates if we should move this window to the weekend to try and get some of these in before these games kick off, and we just decided, you know what, keep our loyal viewing time. We won't be prognosticating for any week finales. Week 17 is in the books. There is one round of NFL regular season games left, and as it stands, 5 playoff spots remain. 4 of the 8 division titles remain up for grabs. Just 3 of 14 seeds are locked in. 2 days of competition, 1 week of NFL remains. Laz, did I get all of that correct? My 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was going to do a little Wayne reference, but it gets dodgy real quick. Heading into Week 18?
Wouldn't be the first little Wayne reference we've had on this show, but, apt use of the word dodgy there. You can get into some suspect waters with the wheezy one. No, anything short of, maybe I could have used an acrostic poem to go with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown as well. But no, you summed up the pitch as you always do so well. But look, it's great to be here celebrating the new year. It's the second here. It's the first over where you are still. The sun is shining. The wet weather of the New Year's turnover that we had has faded from Sydney. It's a glorious mid-20s Celsius. I'll let you do the conversion day here on the East Coast.
We've got low 30s Fahrenheit here.
And we've got, we got that feeling that comes in. Look, everybody's going to do their New Year's resolutions and all that. We're not doing New Year's resolutions here. We're not doing that. We're looking at a crazy 48 hours in the last 48 hours of the NFL that threw divisions up in the air. You just painted the picture there that has brought refereeing drama to the forefront again. A refereeing revolution perhaps is on. We shall see. It's also posed some fascinating questions for some teams lower down the pecking order that may have some quarterback decisions. When you look at the play of 2 very mobile, talented quarterbacks who ply their football in the NFC in one Kyler Murray and Justin Fields. A lot to take in, but one thing we want to focus on in New Year's, Phil. One thing that happens, and look, it's something you're probably more familiar with than me, although I have been back in the gym lately, is that after New Year's, we're not doing resolutions, but there's something called resolutioners at your local fitness facility. People that enjoy the holiday season and make the yearly pledge that, hey, time to head to the gym, time to and be healthy, whatever, be positive in your body, all that, support everybody in that, and don't want to discourage anybody from doing that. But you do get people that do turn up to the gym, and perhaps it is a 2-week run or a 3-week run that covers January, and then, February comes around, Super Bowl parties perhaps, and, the agenda starts to get away. So what we're looking at here, rounding into form here, is the contenders that have some work to do, have some issues, have some holes in their armor, if you will, have some flaws that they're looking to sharpen up, to tighten up. They're heading to the gym with some gains in mind, and we're going to have a look at them and discuss whether they can make these gains stick, whether this is something we will talk about for a couple of weeks, and then it will fade off into obscurity as their campaign to get to Las Vegas and the Super Bowl fades off into the distance, like many a New Year fitness regime, or whether there's some stickability here, some stickiness for these attempts to better themselves and turn themselves into a more concrete, certified, bona fide Super Bowl chance.
Yeah, Laz, and it's not that the regular gym goer is upset at the influx of participation in and of itself. It's that there's a learning curve with some basic measures of gym etiquette.
Yes.
That I think we'd all just prefer that the newcomer, the novice, would enjoy his or her time more if they were aware of these things, just to avoid the faux pas. And of course, then the regular gym goer is appreciative of somebody sharing the passion and just moving along the learning curve themselves. So that's what we're here to address. It is not to judge or disparage, but just give you a little heads up that you're kind of violating the moray of the environment. And we're just gonna give you a little hat tip. And I will say, for teams like the Ravens, the 49ers, the Browns, those are the 3 playoff seeds that are locked in. The 1 in the NFC, 1 in the AFC, and the 5 in the wild card picture. I think Joe Flacco is going to rest against the Joe Burrow-less Bengals. The Bengals are favored in that game. So we'll let them start their new gym attendance next week and look at them in earnest. We'll take them off the table.
Christian McCaffrey
they want
The
to
news
recommend.
is coming in that Christian McCaffrey is likely to miss Week 18, the regular season finale, with the calf strain the mid calf strain, as the Niners look to.
And I jumped on the
another
Rams plus 4.5, and I think that number is going to shrink as we get closer. The 49ers and Ravens are in an odd spot because if they rest starters, it's actually 2 weeks off, and you might develop a little bit of rust heading into a divisional round playoff game. But with nothing for which to play, you would feel very foolish if a Lamar Jackson or Brock Purdy got hurt. But we're just going to push their gym return off to the side. And Laz, if we can address the elephant in the room, just the elephant in the room, my blue room. I don't know what's going on with my lights. So if I come up here, hi everybody, see me? My color is normal.
Look at him.
I'm afflicted with some illness. I don't know.
It's a new year. For the first time, I'm the tanned one on the show.
Tobias Dunke, gone awry and Arrested Development. I'll spare you any of those lines.
Guys, let us know in the comments what you think the reason behind Phil's blue screen is. But I will tell you for a fact that I know he was rocking Eiffel 65 hard over New Year's. I'm blue. He was diving into Wikipedia to see what the lyrics really were. There's always been some controversy and some suggestions about that, taking back to the early internet era. So Eiffel 65 representative Phil Murphy here, rocking the blue to the core.
Well, Laz, you know who is actually blue? All of South Beach after the Dolphins went up to Charm City and got rocked by the Ravens. So we're going to start there with our New Year's Gym Club. Just the little violation of etiquette. And it's not even a violation of etiquette. It's like, hey, guys, just be aware, Dolphins players, don't crowd the machine. If somebody is working, give them a little elbow room and then some. You don't want any risk of bumping the weights or getting in the way or obstructing, view or anything like that. So don't crowd the machine. In the Dolphins case, the machine is Lamar Jackson. And for some reason, Miami was insistent on blitzing Jackson again and again and again at a 48% blitz rate against Jackson the last 4 times they've played. And so it goes beyond this past week when they blitzed him, and he was 8 of 9 passing against the blitz for 207 yards, a career high, and 3 touchdowns. In Lamar Jackson's career, the only team that's blitzed him more is the Broncos. But in this game, in his career against Miami, when blitzed, Jackson averages 81% completions, 12.5 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, no picks. And they just keep blitzing him. Laz, yesterday's game in Baltimore, 56-19 the final, if you check the ticker on the screen. That is 4 weeks to the day from the potential AFC Championship game, which could well be a rematch of the game we saw just over 24 hours ago. So this is all right, if you're 4 weeks into your regimen, don't crowd the machine, don't blitz Lamar. You blitz him at a 48% clip over 4 games. He averages 12.5 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, no picks on 81% completions. And in that game yesterday, that lost 8 of 9 passing, 207 yards. Best of any game of his illustrious, soon-to-be 2-time MVP career against pressure, and 3 touchdowns, and, of course, no interceptions in those scenarios. And now Miami will get injury updates coming. It does appear as though Bradley Chubb did suffer a knee injury that will keep him out for the foreseeable future, so that really compromises the 4-man pass rush. So don't be tempted to crowd the machine.
No.
Because I think you'd be better served just doing what you can, blitzing 4, dropping 7, and taking your chances, because added pressure, Lamar Jackson eats Miami alive.
That's it. Like what you said there, do what you can. It works on multiple levels there. Know your limits. Know when the workout, it's good to push. It's good to, it's good to get the gains. It's good to feel the burn. But know when you've reached your max, because if you go over, you can start to get yourself hurt. And that was that scenario, a couple minutes to go.
And Miami coming into that game, since Jalen Ramsey came back from the injury, they were number 1 in the NFL in points per game allowed, number 1 in opposing QBR, lowest opposing QBR since week 8. Lamar Jackson had a perfect passer rating. I know it's not exactly QBR, but he didn't stink with his legs. We called it the Jackson 5, Herm and I on the show. 5 touchdown passes for Lamar, 3 incomplete passes, 18 for 21, 5 touchdowns. He was perfect in that game. And Miami came in with the fewest explosive plays allowed, plays of 20 or more yards for the opposing team. They gave up 10 in 60 minutes of football. Big risk, big reward. That's how Baltimore got to 56. And if they do it again, now in 27 days in an AFC Championship game in Baltimore, it may not be as lopsided of a result, but it won't be that different.
We'll move on to some other teams in a second because we do have a few to get to. But while we're on Baltimore, look, Lamar's your MVP. He was your midway MVP. He's taken that throne back. Some arguments on the social media amongst the NFL literati this week about whether his efficiency numbers, really show that he's deserving of MVP. And there's always people that talk about his counting stats and not having, the most touchdown passes. Well, coming out and dropping that puts that basic and needs to be deeper part, just numerical, simple, old school counting number argument to the side. And then when you're 12 or 14 for 3 touchdowns and over 250 yards in the first half, I'm going to guess the efficiency looked pretty hot there, but just look at what he's doing beyond the numbers as well. Marry the numbers with what you watch on film, operating from the pocket, creating extra yardage from plays that should have been dead to rights there with pass rush, getting home, throwing on the run, delivering gorgeous touch passes to the sideline, attacking downfield, throwing to run, throwing to threaten the defense with his legs. What he is doing in encompassing every facet of the quarterback position is he's making it look easy. And when someone is making it look easy, despite losing 2 of their best running backs this season, despite losing their star tight end, who had been their number 1 receiving threat, when someone is making it look that easy, there's a reason for it. All right, let's move on to my first one here. We're not going to touch on the refereeing just to start with. We're going to go to the Dallas Cowboys. And this one, let's take away, we'll get into what happened at the end of that game. Justifiably, we will get into it throughout the show. But a lot of noise throughout that game about the play calling, early down runs, why were you throwing late in game, clock management from Mike McCarthy. And that can get really snowballed during a game. So I went back and watched every play again. And no, it was absolutely right. The rule here at the gym, at the New Year's gym club for the Cowboys is your workout plan makes no sense. What are you actually trying to achieve here? What gains are you looking for? Why are you passing so infrequently on first down and turning towards a very conservative run on first down for less than 2 yards a carry throughout huge chunks of this game, putting yourself in 2nd and long and 3rd and long and turning to Dak Prescott and say, hey, you, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, can you guys bail me out now? Can you, create under pressure completions over the middle into tight windows to keep the chains moving? When every time the Cowboys looks like passing, when they did look to pass on first down and use play action against just super aggressive Lions defense that will bite on play action like it's made out of the finest New York cheesecake, why you would constantly move away from that when Dak made it look so easy every time you gave him that opportunity on early downs. And then late in the game, when you actually do need to be running the ball, then you're cutting loose and firing deep passes when those 40-second increments were so pivotal. We wouldn't have even got to the controversy at the end of this game if not for the bizarre clock management from Mike McCarthy. And whilst the Cowboys have, through fortune, through calamitous refereeing operations, through what the Eagles, the defeat that they suffered to the Cardinals, and now in position to play at home, which is huge. And for a team that is undefeated this season at home, 8-0, 16-0 streak at home, while their home strength is now being enabled by a confluence of events, what is now rearing its ugly head, and Green Bay Packers fans will tell you all about it, is the Mike McCarthy game planning. The Mike McCarthy clock management is now rearing its head again at the worst possible time. So I think the Cowboys need to figure out what makes sense to them, attacking through the air early on downs. And I don't know whether Mike McCarthy needs to go play Madden. A lot of people on social media pointed out, just get the best 16 to 24-year-old Madden star who knows how to run clock at the end of the game, bring him into the building and add him to the game operation team. But yeah, there's just, whilst they are very lucky and they are winners coming out of this week, the Cowboys, and the road ahead looks good, that's a very, very concerning couple of issues that have reared up that make me just look at you and your presence in the gym and say, do you actually know what you're doing here? Do you know what you're working on? Do your plan, does your regime actually get you where you need to go?
Yeah, it's a guy who saddles up to bench press every day. And it's good in its doses. It's good when, twice a week. It's not good every time out. No. And Laz, you mentioned it. Like, I don't want to get too deep into the refereeing stuff now, because to me, it's an obvious platitude. It seems as though a mistake was made. But the game should have never been that close. You watch that game for 60 minutes. The Cowboys should have won that game by 10 to 13 points. But it was, fumble at the goal line by CeeDee Lamb, yet another fumble in plus territory in the deepest, like the blood red zone, like the very cusp of the goal line for them. And then the kind of curious play calling and the fact Jared Goff just marched down the field on that last drive. Credit to Detroit, they showed a lot of character. But now as we enter the playoffs, as long as Dallas doesn't stub their toe in DC, I'm not worried. I know as a partisan fan, you worry about it. As a neutral viewer, I don't. Dallas is in a position to go home, where, as you mentioned, it's 16 straight home wins. In the last quarter century in the NFL, the only teams with a longer run of road victories are the multiple times in the peak of the Brady Belichick years. I think they went 18, 18, and 20, or 16, 18, and 20 in terms of consecutive home wins. So it's that level of home dominance the Cowboys have had. And now it seems as though they're 2 home wins away from an NFC Championship berth. But those home games, they do project to be against Jordan Love-led Packers team that is playing quite well. And I know we're going to talk about them in a little bit. And a potential rematch against the Lions on that same field, or Matt Stafford coming to town with a very efficient offense if the Rams, end up pairing with the Lions and Matt Stafford breaks the heart in Detroit, which is poetic injustice for that poor city, but very possible. These are the things that the Cowboys do need to clean up. The road is paved. The road to the NFC Championship game and a rematch against a very good 49ers team is paved. You asked me before the show, who's my number 3 team in the NFL, because I disagree with yours. My number 3 is probably Dallas. I would have said Miami, but now there's some injury concerns there, some pass rush concerns. I would give the nod only just to the Cowboys as the 3rd best team in the NFL. It's all set up for them.
Now it is. Yeah.
Just don't ruin it. Don't get too clever. Rotate in some other exercises. Have a plan, and then you will get to an NFC Championship game, and then you're 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl. It's not an easy task at all, but it's all set up.
And Washington have played spoiler to the Cowboys before, particularly at home in Dak Prescott's time there. I will just say, and I'm not suggesting that Washington wouldn't be playing to win, but with the results of the past week, Washington, who need a quarterback, sorry, Sam Howell fans, are now in position with a loss to take the 2nd overall pick in the draft.
And that defensive back end, Dak could throw for 400 through 3 quarters and come out of the game up 41-10. I mean, that defense is so bad, and they're so bad at protecting Sam Howell. Micah Parsons will have 3 sacks by halftime. You're fine. By the way, I think it's like a color balance thing. If I hold up my black water bottle, look, my color's normal. And now
my God, look at that.
Now I go, look, you got Murphy and then Smurfy.
No.
Murphy, Smurfy. Anyway, we digress. We'll continue with our New Year's Gym Club.
Yeah.
If you're just tuning into the live show, these are teams that are, newcomers to the scene, violating some New Year's gym etiquette, and we're just giving you the heads up to avoid a little embarrassment and frustration on both sides.
Correct.
For me, you need to. There's a direct correlation between intentionality and effort in a workout environment and results. And oftentimes people are discouraged in a gym environment if they're newcomers and novices, because they'll go for 2 or 3 weeks and be like, you know what, it's not worth my time. If I were to see or feel more results, I would go. But sometimes those are the people who go in and they pop on the treadmill at lowest setting and just walk for 50 minutes and never really even get like a heart rate up. It's just, we need to turn up the intensity to reach the goals.
I feel seen.
And for me, that's the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oof.
We need a little bit more intentionality, a little bit more, I guess intensity is the term. Laz, this is a team that has the number 12 scoring offense in the NFL, which is bang on average. And that's not the Chiefs. They were the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL last year. And Laz, I'll just throw this out to you. You're a terrific football mind. I don't say it to challenge you, but just for context and a blind survey, last 6 Super Bowl champions.
Mm-hmm.
What is the lowest ranked scoring offense of those 6?
I believe I saw your pre-show notes. I believe it's 7th.
It is. For my pre-show notes, the Rams, Super Bowl 56, when they beat the Bengals in SoFi Stadium. I would know. I was there. Last 6 Super Bowl champions, all of them ranked top 7 in the NFL in scoring. And other than those Rams, all of them ranked top 5. They also, kind of weirdly, had a higher ranked scoring offense than they had a scoring defense. Funny enough, that would disqualify the Ravens and the 49ers. Cowboys would be eligible, as would the Dolphins. But the Chiefs are the number 12 scoring offense, which is well outside of that. Their defense is higher than the offense. They have the worst third down conversion rate for this team since 2017, the worst red zone conversion rate for this team since 2019. Patrick Mahomes averaging career lows in yards per attempt, average air yards, and he has a career high in yards after the catch, which means everything is get it close and hope they run. I'm going to say it. Travis Kelce looks old. He just has looked old in the last couple of weeks. Some of these 3rd and 7 little out routes that there's a little bit of just lack of synchronization between the cut and the placement and the throw from Mahomes, and whether that's the routes too deep or Travis Kelce's just having a little bit trouble getting there at the same pace that he did. He's into his mid-30s. Your speed starts to wane. This is a team that only lost one of its top 11 pass catchers from a year ago. They shouldn't be regressing this month much. They did lose their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, but that doesn't account for the drops and things. It doesn't seem like they're going in there with much drive and intensity, except for those select moments, like when they were down 10 yesterday to the Bengals, and then in the third quarter, Patrick Mahomes starts stretching it out and going more vertical. Average yards per attempt was 12 in the third quarter of that game. Bottle up that intensity, and you'll get to your goals. If not, you might be one and done in the playoffs, because as things are falling, if the Bills beat the Dolphins, you have Miami at Kansas City as a very real wild card game. And if not, then it gets kind of messy. It could be the Texans or the Jags in Kansas City. Teams that are certainly capable of beating Kansas City with this. If Kansas City is only going to score 22 points, which is where they've been, and thank you, Harrison Butker, for going 6 for 6 because they only got in the end zone once yet again. Unless they resolve this, it'll be a short stay. We won't have to worry about seeing Patrick Mahomes on the road in the playoffs because they're going to lose at home.
I'm glad you brought up Harrison Butker there, because in a week, championship week for most fantasy leagues out there, a lot of love was being heaped on Lamar Jackson. A lot of love was being heaped on CeeDee Lamb. Lots of memes being like, oh, faced these two, and then, insert pop culture scene of someone sad with no hope. But let's talk about it. Imagine if you went up against Harrison Butker this week, particularly in a league that should, as you try and get these settings set in there, provides decimal scoring for kickers. 6 for 6, absolutely nails. Kick over kick from Butker. Looked like the Harrison Butker of old there, but there's some frustration. Rashid Rice has a really nice day. Isaiah Pacheco looking healthy and explosive again. But that point about Travis Kelce, I think we got one of the plays we get so used to with Mahomes to Kelce, whether it was improvised or whether it was just the design of the play. How many times did we see Kelce 6 yards deep from the line of scrimmage, after when either early in the progression or the play's breaking down and Mahomes is looking for an outlet? And the way that he used to come to balance right before the ball got there to set up his break and move it. And he'd wheel and pivot out of the break and get north to south and create those yards after catch. It's what so many people saw from Dalton Kincaid during his time in college, and projected to how well he got north and south and became a runner of the football after the catch point at different levels of the field. And that just seems to have fallen off there. So I agree with you, Darren. They do need some intensity, some juice. I think like we've said, there's no one walking through, there's no one walking through the door to save them at the receiver spot. Right now, what you've got. Rashee Rice is leveling up. You got whatever's left of Kelce and Pacheco out of the backfield, or particularly running the rock. Those are your offensive linchpins. I don't think you can bank on anything more coming about. Okay, my next one here. Going to leave the other side of that Cowboys game for a minute. Let's go to the Green Bay Packers. And the Green Bay Packers, who, look, you're not going to get to go up against what Minnesota rolled out at quarterback there between Hall and Mullins, and a Hawkinson-less Vikings offense week in, week out, and certainly not in the playoffs. But now with their fate in their hands, the chance of winning it in, things are going well. Your program is going. I know you're new here, you're young here, you've been going to the gym well, but
youngest one in the gym. Youngest one there. Youngest one in the gym.
Youngest one in there. And you've got the respect of you're going about it the right way. You got the respect of the old heads there. You're not, you're using towels, you're wiping down surfaces, you're not leaving weights all over the place, not leaving plates all over the place, all that kind of stuff. That's great. Just beware. Do not this is more of a bit, what is going on is working. This is more of a warning. You haven't done something wrong. You haven't hit a faux pas, but there's perhaps some tropes that you can fall into. And I'm just saying, avoid the weird older guy telling you to switch to an all kangaroo meat diet and only work out between the hours of 3 and 4:30 in the morning because of some secret, caveman gains. You don't need to go down that road. What is working with the young receivers, whether, it was a big game for Jaden Reed in this one here, but week in, week out, whether we've seen it with Dobbs or Wicks, take your pick. There's been so much growth in that receiving room. We saw Luke Musgrave have moments, and I loved him coming out of the draft. Also really like Kraft coming out of the draft. Musgrave goes down, Kraft steps in, and he's been consistently productive. And wait, there you go. There's Aaron Jones looking healthy and explosive once again. Haven't even mentioned the name Jordan Love yet, but Jordan Love's consistently aggressive downfield play style, looking, whether it's early in the downs, whether it's fourth down, sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. More often than not, though, we're seeing positive gains. He's eye disciplined, whether the pressure is coming around him or he's got a clean pocket. He's looking downfield. He's stressing the defense out even before the ball leaves his right hand. There's so much going right here. Stick to the plan. You've got a good head coach, a well-designed offense there with LaFleur. Defense, we can touch on, but for that Packers offense going into the playoffs, no one's expecting you to make a deep run. Mm-hmm. Look at this as an opportunity to get some playoff experience for a young team and know that, hey, look, our defense, we know who we are. We know what we've been. We know we're not going to go up against that Vikings team, that Vikings offense week in, week out. But we are talented and we are in rhythm enough and increasing our chemistry and our discipline, our execution on offense. Let's go in knowing that we might get into a 35-32 battle, but let's go in with the mentality we've maintained, the play style we've maintained, knowing that we can cause a spoiler in week one. We can cause the upset and have people going, okay, with all the confusion with different teams at the top of the, outside of San Francisco, at the top of the NFC, can we be the bolter out of this to say that we're going to be the contender from this conference to battle San Francisco going forward? So just stay what you're doing. Avoid some of the dodgy advice you can find from older, rusted-on heads, or perhaps some of the flakier thinkers in the gym floor. Stick with what's good. Stick with what's going for you. Keep the plan going.
Yeah, avoid the guy on Instagram who wears that like fuzzy Mike sticker thing that everybody has on now and is insistent that his way is the best way. You're exactly right, Laws. In the last 7 games, the Packers have won 5 of them. They're 5-2. And Jordan Love in those games, 16 touchdowns to 1 interception. I don't need to get sexy with average air yards or completion percentage over expectation. 16 touchdowns, 1 interception over 7 games. If I looked at a quarterback and he had a little G on his helmet and he had 16 touchdowns and 1 pick over 7 games, I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers MVP year. The credit to Jordan Love comes in, youngest roster in the NFL. They lose Christian Watson. He's missed now 4 of those games to a hamstring injury. He was also missing time earlier in the season. And Matt LaFleur said, yeah, he's young. He's 24, but he's one of the elder statesmen in the receiving room. He's a leader. Took a couple games. They struggled to get things going against the Giants, lost a very winnable game there at MetLife Stadium. But now it seems that Watson is getting toward this situation where he's going to come back, be able to now take the top off of a defense and add another weapon to a Jordan Love offense that 16 touchdowns and 1 pick in the last 7 games. And the other name you mentioned, Aaron Jones, as the temperature has gone down, his fitness and productivity has gone up. This is a guy who didn't get to 75 rush yards through 8 weeks of the season. That includes being held to 29 in a loss to Minnesota in week 8. All he's done the last 2 weeks, 120 plus. The last Packers running back to go over 120 plus rush yards in back-to-back games, Ahman Green in 2003. Ooh. I know that all too well because I reached for Ahman Green in my 2004 fantasy draft and bit me badly. But Laz, this is a team that they're built very differently than the Eagles and all of those things, but that Eagles 2021 team that kind of punched above its weight, and they had a dead rubber for the Cowboys in week 18 and beat a Cowboys team that was resting and eked their way into the 7th seed of the playoffs. Not a dead rubber for the Packers. They face the Bears, who are mathematically alive for the playoffs, and Justin Fields is in fine form. But if the Packers can get into the playoffs and get that little taste of experience, to me, it sets up as a similar trajectory that this is a bye. This is the youngest roster in the NFL with a quarterback who's still on the tail end of a rookie deal and is developing before our eyes. This is a team that next year could take that, coincidentally, a division rival, a Lions-type jump when they get a new defensive coordinator and they add some pieces on the defense. That's a similar song to the Lions. But this is a team that could go from 9-8, going to Dallas, giving the old college try and just being a little overmatched in Arlington is how that projects. But then next year be a team that could get to 11 or 12 wins and contend for a division and then really be in a position to make some noise and say, okay, are our quarterback serviceable? Yes. Can he carry us to a playoff run? And that's the next evolution. So for Packers fans, you have to feel excited on the trajectory of this team. And like you're saying, just don't feed into the trends and don't feed into the weird thing. What you are doing is working. Patience is a virtue. You're on the right track. Stick with it. Just fine advice. But
I love that. Hold on. I love that you didn't want to get into just like you didn't need to get into the sexy deep analytics there or any of the more fancy terms that we use these days. But I will just say, over those 7 weeks, Jordan Love at the quarterback position, second in EPA per dropback, second in offensive success rate, and on key downs where you could expect a younger quarterback to get rattle perhaps on third down, looking at exotic looks, pressures, simulated pressures, 5th in EPA per play on the key third down, the money down.
For the season, when he gets blitzed, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He is tremendous against man defense with Christian Watson, and he had 3 touchdowns, no picks against the blitz yesterday with no Christian Watson. Now, Watson could be back for this Bears game, and if the Packers win, he'll certainly be ready for the playoffs. I mean, that's a huge weapon to have back for somebody that's shown he can figure this out and think quickly. I mean, that's so much about the blitz is diagnosing pre-snap, being reactive, trusting your arm, trusting your receivers, which is hard to do when you have the youngest roster in the NFL, but he's doing it.
It's just so nice for Packers fans who've just gone so long without elite franchise quarterback play as well.
I know. I mean, it's just, you think, man, it just to have that. I mean, but then again, I support the Broncos who had John Elway and then Peyton Manning, and it's not the same. But now we're paying with a pound of flesh, the pounds of flesh. It's the golly.
All right, who you got last?
Tyler, Tebow. Anyway, we continue on. Laz, my last one has less to do with form or plan or even mentality. It's about fashion.
Ooh.
So many people, part of their resolution in returning or going for the first time to the gym is that, look good, feel good, play good type deal. They want to look sharp. And so maybe a significant other or somebody to support the habit, get you some new workout gear. Perhaps, that little bit of extra drive to get in there. If you like how you look and feel and all that. So the problem is, sometimes you look over and the novice is a little bit of maybe a sneakerhead. Got the nice kicks that they don't really want to work in, want to run in.
Don't want to crease.
Exactly. You don't want to crease them. My thing is, for the Buffalo Bills, they have a sneaker head under center. They need to bring some running shoes. 2 things here. For the Bills, Josh Allen in a close win over the Patriots, a 6-point game, didn't come close to covering the spread. Josh Allen, 2 more rush TDs, both on a tush-push type sneak. As much as Philly, dissenters of the tush-push roll their eyes, 2nd and 1, here we go. We know what's going to happen.
Here we go.
Get behind and shimmy forward, and they're going to get the first down eventually. On tush-push plays, the Bills this season have converted 25 of 25. They're perfect. Only team with more conversions is the Eagles. Josh Allen, kind of quietly, has tied an NFL rushing record for quarterbacks with 15 rushing touchdowns on the season. Obviously, he's a dual threat. And, he's passing touchdown in this many, in receiving touchdown or rushing touchdowns this many games. We know that. Just the bulk gross number 15 ties an NFL record. And if he gets 1 more in Miami, he will stand alone single season rushing TDs for a quarterback. That's all well and good. It's great to have a strong, strapping quarterback at Carolina when they look like, golly, it's 2nd and 1. We can't have Bryce Young sneak. He'll get broken. We got to turn around and hand to Miles Sanders or whatever the solution is. Josh Allen is a bona fide weapon in that regard. He is a sneaker head. Laz, we need to bring some running shoes for the boys outside because Allen on passes of 10-plus air yards, giving some semblance of vertical threat. Against the Patriots this past week, he was 5 for 13. That percentage brings down his completion percentage on throws of 10-plus air yards to 49.7. It is his lowest since 2019. Also, he's thrown 14 interceptions on passes of 10-plus air yards. That's the most of any quarterback since 2019. To refresh your memory, 2019 was Josh Allen's 2nd year in the NFL. 2020, Stephon Diggs comes in the fold. They bond over Call of Duty, become best mates. 3rd year in the Brian Daboll offense, and his QBR is going from 48, 49, bam, 65. His completion percentage is going 57, 58, bam, 68. And Josh Allen goes from did we make the right pick with this guy to perennial MVP contender. Josh Allen's deep ball numbers have regressed to that bad Josh era. And this was just an ugly game, right? There were 17 points scored before either quarterback completed a pass.
Yeah, return touchdown at the opening
tip. The
tip.
score was 10-7. 17 total points were scored before either QB had a completion. If it sounds like a lot, it is. It's the most points scored before either quarterback completed a pass in any game in 40 years, 1983. So it was a funky, ugly game. But this is the second game in a row coming off of that statement Cowboys win. The Bills are back. They beat the fighting Easton Sticks by 2, 22-20. That was a game up until the final possession against Bailey Zappi. I don't know, man. I know a lot of people are saying the Bills are ready for a Super Bowl run. I'm a little bit bearish on that. I think they're benefiting from a very weak schedule at the end. They don't have the ability to stretch a defense consistently vertically, and they're in a position. It surprises me a little bit. They're favored in Miami by 3. I think some of that goes down to the health of the Dolphins. But Laz, they got to bring their running shoes. Otherwise, this team is going to be one-dimensional in the playoffs. And you said it when we were talking on the phone last night. They consistently play to level their opposition. Yeah. Teams that do that don't win Super Bowls. Teams that do that don't have January staying power, which is what our New Year's Gym Club is all about.
Oh, look, there's a lot of fair points there. I have them currently sitting at 3 in my power rankings, and I'm stunned at myself that I've got them that high. I don't believe that they are bona fide Super Bowl contenders. I think that's where we are after the top 2. That's where we are after the Ravens.
Listen, if they beat Miami and they're in Western New York in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, which the way it would be, game changer, because they are a different team in Western New York. And then this style, January in Western New York, they're not going to need to throw it deep.
No,
but
they're not.
They win and they got to go on the road. It's tough, man.
And part of it is, yes, we've seen them play up to the better competition they've played, and those victories tend to linger in your mind. I think also you just look at what's going on with Miami there. We've mentioned that Jalen Phillips has been gone with an Achilles tear for some time now. Now their other bookend defensive end, pass rusher there, Bradley Chubb, is out. So the pass rush side of things, with what teams will now be able to do, doubling up on the inside and limiting Christian Wilkins. And then you got Xavier Howard getting a little banged up in this game as well. So that kind of really nice 2-pronged corner attack that you had there with Ramsey and Howard on the back end. So the Dolphins, not just on the scoreboard against the Ravens, but also in how they're placed for a run, they take a hit. The Cowboys and the Lions are an utter mess. Eagles, for me, have fallen out of the top 10. And then we're getting into conversations about teams, like the Cleveland Browns. So that's why I have the Bills sitting there. But there is a chasmic divide, in my opinion, between those top 2 teams. And then we start talking about the third one there. All right, moving on. And I will say, you talk about lack of stretching vertically, and we can dive into deep stats, but just some raw-based stats. I mean, last 7 games, we're talking about 30 total receptions for Stephon Diggs. He's less than 5 a clip at this point. And I do get wary that look healthy, and there's plenty of tape that shows he's still got burst and separation ability and all that kind of stuff, but it's not the same. But when we talk about waiting for the Eagles to finally hit with the amount of talent they have, surely this will come good. They've got so much ceiling above this. For stretches this season, they were winning and they still had more to do, and it's tantalizing. But the longer you get into the season and that doesn't happen, the more that's the reality. And now you're waiting on an outlier, not this seems like an outlier opening month or 2. When's the reality going to kick in? That's the worry there about their long-term viability, because when we get into playoffs as well, we're going to be talking about matchups a lot. And Stephon Diggs is no longer, has, at least in his usage and what we've seen in his production, is no longer the matchup X factor that we've seen in previous years. Okay, my last one. Get this moving because we're almost at 40 minutes. Slightly different rundown. And we got John Roberts jumping in. We can see the viewers are fantastic today, but get those comments in. Who do you think needs to turn up to the gym? John just saying Happy New Year, gents. Happy New Year to you, Big John. If you've got a thought on who needs to turn up to the gym and which team needs to tighten some things up, tweak some things, really needs to work on something for the next few weeks, let us know. We've been focusing on contenders, but if you've got one team that's outside of the playoff picture, perhaps looking forward, but a future gazing, fire it in. My last one here is the Detroit Lions. Again, look, refereeing's going to come up. I'm going to touch on that. It's not the time for that here. My point here about their gym program and what they're working on is the guy that comes up to you, and in this case is right. It's like, bro, just get off the machines and start doing some free weights. Got to work on the stabilizer muscles there. That was certainly an old trope and something that was talked about a lot back in my more frequent gym going days in my youth. But still, the reason I bring this up is because we've seen how good that Lions offense looks when it's on schedule, when they protect Jared Goff, when he's strong in the pocket there and he can just chuck that thing. He's a beautiful natural thrower of the football. He chucked that thing, those big chunk gains over the middle of the field to pick your receiver or tight end. Shout out Sam Laporta. We got to give him his props. But what wasn't talked about in all this game is that we did see some dominant backfield production from the likes of Micah Parsons. DeMarcus Lawrence had a fantastic day. There are other pass rushers there. Armstrong having moments there. Osoro Digizua has been a presence in the backfield for the Cowboys. But Jared Goff, when under pressure, here's where it falls off to. We know how productive that offense has been, but under pressure, this isn't even just facing blitzes. This is pressure.
When pressured, yeah.
32nd in EPA per drop back, 27th in offensive success rate when pressured, and 41st in completion percentage above expectation. And that's
41st?
Yes. And that's 41st. And that's bringing it. Look, there's been a lot of quarterbacks play football this year. And I set the parameter there. I wanted to see over 100 pass attempts for all these situations. And that's still where he came in for completion percentage over expectation. Goff, when pressured, as much as he's been playing some of his best football, arguably the best football of his career this season and in Detroit, some old things about Jared Goff remain true. And that is if you heat him up, if you light him up, not the only quarterback in the NFC that this is the case, as you know too well with some of your studies and some of the stuff you did on Blitz this week, talking about Jalen Hurts. But when you heat him up and when you get pressure on him, the drop-off is rather spectacular. So some more stabilizer muscles, some more free weights. Let's get some, maybe in practice. Hey, I'm not going to tell Dan Campbell how to go to the gym. This is the last guy I think I need to give gym etiquette or gym advice to, or anybody in the world.
You'll get your kneecap bitten off.
Exactly. But maybe Dan Campbell's out there. Maybe he's doing it right now in practice and mixing things up, causing a little more chaos for Jared Goff in their game simulations and scenarios they're playing out in practice. But that's my last one. As we look, it's open doors in the NFL's New Year Gym Club, but we're just trying to make sure that everybody's got a plan, knows the rules, knows the etiquette, is here to have a good time, get healthy.
Yeah, and that's it. Makes it more enjoyable for everybody. The goal isn't I can't wait to get you out of here. No. We just that little bit of information, that little heads up, that little hat tip could give you a little more staying power, and that's what we're here for.
In a sentence that is about as me as it could be, it's like the first time that, I got to play on a golf course with my dad and he had to tell me not to walk across somebody's line and, step all over the green there and ruffle up the turf and cause a misread and a misroll.
The analogy on the analogy, Laz. It's just, we just keep building on
layers, level, matriculate, render. It's all that.
Well, something that has a number of layers to it is our Hot Take Hotline, brought to you by Macca's, where every week you, friend of the show, participant, member of the Brekkie Show family, absolutely, fire up your griddle, and we tell you if it's the appropriate amount of heat, a little too much, or could go a little higher. So, Laz, we have a few submissions this week. I'm going to start with John. And John says, quote, rule change, make replay review video only in real-time speed. Your thoughts?
I mean, the grill is hot off the top here. To say that replay reviews and the footage that we see, he followed up with, all angles, use all angles available, but play that stuff in real time because that's what the refs are having to deal with, and that's what the officials do. And I think when you hear this, and you've heard people talk about, I've heard different, analysts and commentators and writers talk about this before, saying, some go as far as to say replay is the worst thing that ever happened to football because it caused all this drama and chaos. But some people, have brought up that, the super slow-moification of the replay and review process has really clouded what look like and what are instantaneous football plays, and that it's brought in roughing the passer or personal fouls on plays that aren't that character and don't actually fit the core idea. Player safety being what it absolutely needs to be, but aren't really a core, true the core meaning of the rule and what that rule is trying to achieve in the game. And I do understand that, watching those plays from different angles, particularly I think here, I'm all for super slow-mo if we're talking about sideline stuff because I think we should just get that right. But if we're talking about contact, I do understand. You do see sometimes, when you're watching something in slow-mo, a helmet or a shoulder pad or something will ripple when the contact wasn't really there. And whilst those aren't the plays that we're talking about being reviewed and replays and stuff like that, I do understand that type of vision has really impacted how these things are called. Look, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go there. I'm more for, I think there's other parts of, as much as officiating has come massively under scrutiny in the past 48 hours or this whole season, this is about as bad as it's ever been in terms of the conversation, the eyeballs, comments coming from fans, players, media members, and owners and people within teams. I think what has been working really well is the expedited reviews. I'd like to see that expanded. I'd see more players eligible for that. I'd like to see that brought more in, because I think when they're sending it to New York, wherever the office is, and they're looking at it quickly, calling in and helping out refs, saying, hey, we got this wrong. This is a touchdown. Hey, stepped out of bounds. Hey, there's a fumble. Those type of things are working really well. I don't want to take away the slow-mo. And I don't think that it's going to get exactly what you need. But I do think that when we're talking about roughing the passer, we're talking about some personal foul hits, or some of the stuff that's been brought in about body weight landing on quarterbacks on sacks. I think the super slow-moification definitely has had a poor impact on some of those players. When we do need to experience those plays in real life, they can actually paint a true representation of what the contact was and whether it did get anywhere close to the spirit of a personal foul penalty that should be attributed.
Yeah, Laws, that added oversight was a comment that we didn't publish from Rough Rider 88, who's also contributed before under the username Vaucluse Cowboy.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, John, I think you've overcooked the hash brown a little bit, my friend.
Yeah. Likes it crispy.
But you know, the Rose Bowl's on right now. And by the way, if you're watching ESPN and ESPN2, you get the Rose Bowl today, and then the Sugar Bowl is on E1 later tonight. They don't have the multicast for E2 because the Nuggets play the Hornets, and Nikola Jokic is playing. He's fun to watch. Anywho, college game. The replay in real time for personal foul elements, I think, makes sense, like you're talking about, Laws, because in college with the targeting rule and how that's enforced, players are ejected from games for routine football hits because things are slowed down to such a frame by frame degree that no human being could react in real time to a quarterback or vulnerable receiver dipping his head, and now his head comes into the line of a tackle. To say make replay review only in real time speed for catches and fumbles, the goal of replay is to get the call right.
Correct.
So if the problem we're saying is standard of officiating, we want to get these calls correct. Then for things that are objective, we need replay to be as high definition, frame by frame, use multiple views at once.
In, out, knee, down. Yep.
Exactly. For things that are subjective, personal foul, body weight penalties, those types of things that these officials don't want to be the topic of conversation 2 days later. You don't think that crew in Dallas would love to get in the league office in the ear like, no. The guy who walked up to you and said, I'm eligible with 68, not 70. Like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, no flag, 2-point conversion, good.
No. Now you've got me offside. I was wondering if this was coming. It shouldn't have been 2-point conversion good. Why? Because the refs didn't just tell the world that it was Dan Skipper 70 reporting eligible. That's what they told the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys were preparing for Dan Skipper to be eligible, not number 68 Taylor Decker. So,
but it wasn't. But it wasn't the refs, lie in error, is what I'm saying.
Here we go. We're diving into it. Let's go. The refs, my opinion, this was absolutely just entirely mishandled. A huge mistake that cost the Lions their design, the element of surprise on a key 2-point conversion with 20-odd seconds to go, with Mike McCarthy doing Lord knows what with his timeouts and game management. But what sucks about it so much is that from a game that had chunk plays and missed opportunities from both sides and splash plays from both defenses and individual moments of brilliance and 2 playoff teams vying for positioning, seeding, division titles, whatever it is, the fact that they just ruined that play entirely, because the Cowboys, not only did they wipe away everything I just mentioned, the design, the surprise, the execution of the Detroit Lions, they didn't even set the Cowboys up to defend it properly. Yeah. They told them to look for the wrong man. Go have a look at how, I'm not saying you're going to put your best cover man on the offensive line who's reported eligible, but look at the nearest defenders off the snap to Taylor Decker. Not exactly looking at some tight hip pocket, tight man coverage there. So I just wanted to get in there. Completely jobbed what the Detroit Lions were trying to execute there. And what sucks is that from then on, whether it was the play 5 yards back where Parsons was offside, negating Cowboys intercepting, to bring it back to the original mark, even though you bring back to the original mark and you're having another go at it, so much has been taken away from the Lions at that point. It's just an entire mess. And I think it's part of what's going to lead to some, we say this going into every season, but this time feels different in regards to the officials.
If you ever want to fire up Laz.
Yeah, you really got me.
I mean, my go-to is to insist that you need to run to set up the play action effectively. You need to run effectively to set up the play action.
Or you believe the touchback rule is fine.
It is, but we're running low on time. We'll get to that on a different iteration of this. That one I'm not actually winding you up. I believe that to be true. But the point is, objective calls, we need replay to have the scrutiny it has. Nobody's saying, like, I mean, when was the last time on a catch in the end zone we're like, man, this replay is taking entirely too long? If it's unclear, they're usually pretty good at call on the field, stands, move forward. It's an objective play. It's the subjective ones where guys are being penalized for routine hits, particularly when the quarterback is in the pocket, gets sacked, a defender lands on him with body weight and things like that people are getting flagged for. What kind of luxury would it be for these officiating crews who you and I and people in our positions with microphones and makeup on are going to scrutinize for days on end? If in the ear, hey guys, you stuffed that up. Oh, for real? No flag.
That's it. And those flags aren't reviewable right now. Those penalties aren't reviewable right now. I think we should get to a world where they are. People argue about timing. Oh, should it be in the final 2 minutes? Oh, but plays outside the final 2 minutes also matter. Yes, they do, but plays in the final 2 minutes limit your ability to actually respond and rally to bounces that might not go your way, whereas in that final 2 minutes, there's so little time to respond. It may be game-ending. Nicole Ruby-Coleman down the sideline, Saints fans, anyone? But I if we expanded it to, say, just throwing out there the final 5 minutes of each half, where these flags could be reviewable, not in a coach's challenge way, but reviewable by an expedited review. Yeah. I think that for those personal foul ones, I think that it's tough to legislate what a replay, booth can look at in terms of footage. But I would, if you could stress to them to really emphasize watching them in real time for those, just to get an idea for what the real intent, that real time intent and vibe of the play. Actually, here we go, the vibe.
The term used in European football is clear and obvious error. So if you have an eye in the sky to be a safety net of a clear and obvious error on a subjective call, yes, but can say, like, no, you got that wrong. Buzz down. You have booth review in place. You have somebody sitting there and can say, hey, that wasn't a personal foul hit on a quarterback. That wasn't a blindside block. I know holding is going to upset people, but
and that's why I think it should be, let's limit it to the personal foul stuff, because holding can happen on every single play.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If the clear and obvious personal foul calls that have taken away turnovers from teams,
you could get face mask penalties that aren't picked up. You can get horse collar calls that are incorrect or correctly applied that we can use to determine that. I think there's
when you make these giant trying to like fix all the problems that you kind of create more problems. But I think to your point, to confine it to personal fouls, that is an intermediate step toward a solution where the game is moving faster than it ever had, and it's been over legislated with all the new rule books and adaptations and things. The referees have to look for more and more and more and more on each play than they ever had before. Give them a safety net. I'm sure they would prefer not to be a talking point post game.
Whew. They really got us going with that one. Okay, next one on the hot take hotline. We've really kicked off fast there. Okay. Chris Murphy says the QB slide rule should go away. There's too many bailout penalties on last second slides, particularly the ones where you see, this is me editorializing here, you do see quarterbacks almost feign to go down or delay or hesitate on their way down to hang up there a little longer. Phil, it's a QB slide hitting the quarterback as they begin their process of sliding. Does a penalty need to go away?
No, it doesn't. We don't have a problem with too many healthy QBs in the NFL. No. If every quarterback were healthy, we know there aren't 32 quality quarterbacks in the NFL with the level at which defense is played. I mean, ask the Jets, ask the Bengals, ask these teams ask what should have been the Browns have had their seasons derailed by quarterback injury. Ask the Vikings. These teams that have lost quarterbacks to injury and then compromise the entire season. That's bad for the product. That's bad for the neutral fan. Now, that said, Chris doesn't need to turn the grill all the way down.
No.
My fellow Murphy has a valid point here. With the slide rule in particular, we saw Kenny Pickett when he was at university at Pittsburgh in a bowl game fake a slide. The defense led up, and he did this kind of like Elvis Presley slide step, stayed upright, and ran for a touchdown. And immediately the NCAA said, no, that's outlawed. NFL followed suit, all that. But we're seeing these guys do this kind of like hybrid, like sideways slide to where if they get hit, it's almost always flagged. But if they're not hit, it's treated as a dive, which is at the end once you give yourself up, as opposed to the beginning of the slide. So these guys are picking up an extra yard or two. I think the quarterbacks know how to abuse these protection rules, and some are rewarded for it. So I do think there needs to be a little bit of reform for what are routine football tackles and guys who are opting to turn into runners, that they need to clearly give themselves up if they want to be protected.
Yep.
And these guys near the sideline who are like, oh, they're going out of bounds. I mean, we've seen guys get flagged for hard hits on quarterbacks in bounds because the body flies out of bounds. And that's the kind of stuff where it's like, no. Somebody's trying to abuse the rule and they get caught. But then they're still rewarded for it because reflexively we go to the personal foul flag. So that's where I think there is some validity in Chris's argument.
Yeah, I look forward to the offseason when I'm going to get the time to pull together every single hit on a QB slide that occurred this season and break it down. I do feel, and this is a little anecdotal, but I do feel feel like over watching some of the games over the past month, that I think we are seeing a few plays not get called when there is contact, as a QB is sliding, has just started sliding, drops their body weight late, when the tackle technique looks more like a traditional tackle and it doesn't look like a shoulder charge, head hunting, blow them up style hit. You will always see, I would bet that it is close to always, you will almost always see a flag thrown when a QB is going down and someone comes in with that vertical missile style launching hit with their shoulder or with their helmet. You know, we've spent so much time talking about Joe Flacco over the past month on here, on everywhere, on every show, on just every social media platform. But Joe Flacco is one that took an absolutely sickening hit, sliding down and getting one of those types of shots to his head. I remember it vividly, and it was really disturbing. Those types, to borrow from, not for the first time, from Eric B and Raheem, when they said, don't sweat the technique. No, here, sweat the technique, sweat what we're trying to do here. When you're seeing someone attack the quarterback as they're going down with that, with a hit that belongs on the YouTube video from the mid-2000s that every one of us has seen, set to, Here Comes the Boom, the hip-hop version, not the POD version. When it looks like a hit that belongs on that video, that flag's going to get thrown. But I do feel like we're seeing refs a little more hesitant and a little more cautious throwing those flags when it's instantaneous, or a normal style tackle technique was clearly being initiated before or as a quarterback was going down in that gray area. I feel like there's being a little sensibility applied there. Not a week for a lot of defense of the officials, but that is one area where I felt less egregiously turned off by the folks in the black and white. All right, next one, Phil. Let's bring it up. This is, wow. Let's do a little paraphrasing this one from Chris as well. Tepper needs something, shall we say, impetus or a saga or something that forces him to sell the team. Not much hope for
what he said is a broad enough brush that I'm fine to say it. Dave
he needs
Tepper,
a scandal to see him out of there.
The not beloved Panthers owner, the take is Tepper needs a scandal that forces him to sell the team. Carolina, not much hope otherwise. I'm not going to say what type of scandal he needs. Maybe
considering the history of that franchise as well.
We'll say money laundering. Okay. He's a very wealthy man. So basically, Chris's point is the team isn't going to turn it around until the owner goes. Yep.
Look.
Yep.
Yeah.
You think that, again, it was small margins in the draft to take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, and it's 1 year of return, but it's not promising that Carolina made the right decision, and they gave up loads of draft capital to get him. The coach they hired to lead the charge has already been fired. The team has already clinched the number one pick, which they're not even getting, and they gave up a wide receiver 1 to get it.
who's gone off for 1,300 yards.
Terrible team management that set this club back 3 to 5 years. Washington dealt with this with Dan Snyder. It's why they didn't change the name for so long until sponsors started bailing. And then they changed the name to the football team because he didn't have the foresight to trademark any potential name for that team. And now Washington, it's like, it's like the post-apocalyptic movie when you get out of the bunker and you see like green grass for the first time and there's hope. That's Washington Commanders fans with new ownership. That's what the Panthers are looking toward. But the way these franchises print money for these teams, Tepper's not going to sell. Their tickets are going for 45 cents US against the Falcons. It wasn't heard because there was a monsoon in Charlotte that day. Nobody's coming out to these games. These teams are, backwards in draft capital. And they are the worst team by a mile in the worst division in the NFL. I mean, they're just the worst team in the NFL, full stop. But yeah, it's looking like a rough 3 to 5 years at least for Carolina. And as long as you have an owner who meddles in these affairs this frequently and then fires everyone around him when it doesn't go well, recycle, rinse, repeat, your ceiling isn't going to be very high. So I know the language in the take was a little spicy. Yeah. But it's an appropriate take. Chris is right.
But well, adding to this, you mentioned fans not coming out there. There is video that's gone out there over the past 24 hours of him allegedly throwing a drink on a fan. Yeah. And I say allegedly.
Well, and he threw a drink. That's not alleged. There's video evidence of that. He chucked the drink into the direction of fans. The context is what's alleged.
Exactly.
And I don't know. I mean, again, drinks aren't expensive for him because he owns the team. But anytime at an establishment that I've seen a drink thrown, it was to celebrate a goal, shouts to the Matildas, or it was to incite.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the last time I've thrown a drink. I've thrown a menu, but I don't know if I can't remember last time.
I've had a drink thrown on me.
I've had that.
I wasn't sorry. I had a drink thrown on me, but I wasn't the target. The person behind me was the target, and I joke it was bullet whiskey. I say I took the bullet, and I got free drinks. The bar gave me free drinks the rest of the night on St. Patrick's Day, so it wasn't.
Yeah, I was at a Luke Combs concert in the Armour Theatre in Sydney a few years back, and I probably wasn't the representative demographic of the concert. I think there were a whole lot more folks from more regional and rural parts of the country. A lot of Akubras, a lot of well-worn RM Williams, deservedly worn RM Williams, and there was a guy who was there, wasn't he? Sorry.
Brucey was there, wasn't he?
No, Brucey was not there on this one. That's our expert, number 2 in command in the ESPN editorial Australia team, rugby and MMA voice, good voice on all sports things, and a Raiders fan too.
Ice cold beer, never.
Yeah, there was a drink thrown at a Kubra wearing young fella next to us by a former partner. They bought tickets together to go to the concert, then split, then came separately to the event, and then there was a reunion of sorts that was similarly a drink was thrown. This is a New Year's vibe today. Okay, we've got
we actually lost. We do have a hot take from John Roberts in the comments.
We do, and I think that's where I want to go next. We got a late mail in on the threads as well that I want to bring up, but I really like John's one, so I'm going to bring that one up right now. John,
good on you, John.
A noted Seahawks fan. Has a little. This is the time, New Year's time for prognostications. Future Seahawks quarterback Justin Fields will beat the Packers this week. The Packers and the Bears playoff in Week 18, sending his team to the playoffs. Go Hawks! Sending his future team in the Seahawks to the playoffs. Go Hawks! I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Phil, what do you make of this take from John?
Man, Justin Fields is playing well. He's making that decision for the Bears, who possess that number 1 pick of Carolina, very difficult. It's not a complicated question that Chicago needs to answer what they're going to do at quarterback next year. But the question is Caleb Williams or Drake May better, full stop, than Justin Fields? If they think either of them is, they take the quarterback 1, they move on from Fields, send him to potentially Seattle, potentially Atlanta, potentially Washington, potentially New England. You and I are going to talk about that leading up to draft time. if you think Fields is better, and in 3 of the last 4 games, with the only exception being a Cleveland team that on any given day might be the best defense in the NFL, he's looked capable. I mean, he has looked what was promised. He and DJ Moore are developing rapport. I mean, that's what the Bears envisioned, right? When they brought in DJ Moore, was through snowflakes, Justin Fields putting it over the top, DJ Moore making a Willie Mays type catch on the sideline, going for how many? What do you have? 140 yards in that game? He was magnificent. That's what the dream was. Now they're playing a defense in Green Bay that is not good. But they're also not that good of a defense themselves, and they're playing Jordan Love, who is in form, and an Aaron Jones, who is in form, $120 each of the last 2 games. That might be the most entertaining game of the week in terms of Bills Dolphins also has the potential to be 38-35. Packers Bears does as well. I mean, you can get them at like what, $2.20 if you like the Bears money line. I'd be more comfortable buying it to a 3.5 at like $1.80 if we're talking that. But I mean, John, it's the appropriate level of heat for the hot take. I'm not going to discourage that.
Beautiful. We love to see it. We love to say, look, Justin Fields has made, as you mentioned, he's made the problem harder, but better for the Bears, because it's more difficult in terms of, do we have to move on? Can we possibly move on from a talent like this? But the asset is increasing its value. And that's how front office is going to look at it. When you have, it's Chicago football and it is snowing and he is just dropping pinpoint dimes to the corner of the end zone, to the sideline, to that sideline, this sideline, over the middle, tight window throws. He's working the pocket. Then we got that was the traditional quarterback stuff. Then we got him throwing the move. Then we got him creating absolute Houdini acts from the pocket to escape and create first downs and chunk plays, positive net yardage out of pressures and what should be, how weren't they sacks. This is the performance that does get those Bears fans chanting your name as the game ends. And that's what was happening. So Justin Fields is putting some tape down that is going to make it exceptionally hard to move on. But ultimately, I think, it's a position of strength for the Chicago Bears to be in right now. Doesn't make it easy, but it is a position of strength. But I've long been a defender of Justin Fields. He's obviously a quarterback who needed time from getting through reads and quickening up his work in the pocket. And that is still a process, but the steps and the signs that he's taken on top of the obvious game-changing splash play-making ability that he has. Look, DJ Moore not only is a phenomenal receiver in career years, he's had 1,300 yards on the button now, 90-odd receptions, touchdowns flowing, but he's also a walking advertisement for the type of aerial production you can have with the talent of Justin Fields' caliber. So that's where I got there. I got one more heater before we get out of here.
Just as you pull that up, just to wrap up the Justin Fields conversation.
Yes, sir.
The Bears made the decision not to reset at quarterback last offseason. They traded to Carolina. They got, amongst other things, DJ Moore, the number 1 overall pick in this coming year's draft. Now they're faced with the same decision because Carolina's terrible. They're 7-9, the Bears are, and they enter the final week of the season mathematically alive for the playoffs. Fields missed some time with a thumb injury. Has Justin Fields improved year over year? To me, he has. He's shown, especially at the back end of the year. So from those maths, unless they think Caleb Williams is Patrick Mahomes 2.0, which some people think he is, I think what the price they got last year for Fields, they can exceed that in return in terms of what they get from a Washington and Arizona, New England, Seattle, one of these teams that's in a quarterback market or in the market for a quarterback. And if he does beat these Packers, even if Seattle beats Arizona and Chicago can't leapfrog them, Chicago needs a few things to happen to sneak into the playoffs at 8-9. But if Fields wins this game with these stakes and spoils it for Green Bay, I think Chicago's going to say, yeah, we've lost time on that rookie deal and having to pay out. But what we'd be getting in draft capital return elsewhere to continue to build around him, offensive line, some additional help.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. If they trade down to 5 or 6 or 4, whatever, you're going to get an option of Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, Malik Neighbors, or Marvin Harrison Jr. You're going to get 3 of those 4 are going to be available who are all pro caliber prospects.
Correct.
And then you continue, you add a Montez Sweat, who's been great. So the Bears, it seems like they're in position to hold court or if they end up trading Fields, he's increased his value enough that they'll increase the return there. But I think you got to, if they beat Green Bay, you got to keep them.
Listen, the comments and the takes for the Hot Take Hotline have been superb today. The viewership has been fantastic. What we're getting, you guys sending is great. On that, we got Andrew letting us know that my Bears got to trade. Look, he thinks got to trade out of the number 1 pick for a haul, multiple first-round picks, impact starter.
Yeah. I think the return this year will be greater than last year with all the expectation around Caleb Williams vis-a-vis Bryce Young. And what the Bears got last year has proven magnificent, not just in DJ Moore, but aided by the fact that Carolina has been so bad.
Absolutely. Not to mention, like, just outside of that trade, what the Bears have done in making a trade and getting themselves.
And their defense has gotten better as the year has gone on.
The defense getting better and making a trade, bring a pass rusher like Sweat in, and the transformative effects, that he's had.
They should have beaten Detroit twice, Chicago. They were up 12 with 4 minutes to go. They let that game get away from them.
Andrew also throwing in that hip drop tackles should be penalized. Look, that's not a hot take. That's just sensible. Hip drop tackles need to be outlawed. We saw another one with Alvin Kamara going down this week. Like, I don't know. I speak with bias because of national bias because of where I live and the sports we have down here and the studies that have been done in our rugby league codes down here, our oval ball codes down here into hip drop tackles, the incredible injury rate. If you want to go find that, just jump. If you're not familiar with it, if you're watching from overseas, just jump on Google and type it in, hip drop tackle study, throw in NRL, and you'll see a bunch of material, video, written, otherwise, that'll just explain it for you. It's not a natural football play. It's not a natural tackling technique. It's not making football soft. It's bringing back good, proper tackling into football, not a technique that is, 1, should be illegal, and 2, is just incredibly damaging to some of the best players in the NFL. And one more that we got, and this is the one we'll end it on, from PC. He's got, we're going to get the 0-16 bowl with the Lions and the Browns meeting in the Super Bowl. New year, new hot take from PC, new submission from a new viewer in PC. Phil, well, that take has, Phil's just left the building.
I'm looking through my notes. I do think, so I told you, last 6 Super Bowl champions. I chucked my notes because I thought we were done. Last 6 Super Bowl champions had a scoring offense that ranked higher than its scoring defense. The teams in the playoffs who qualify for that, Miami, Dallas, Detroit, Philadelphia, the Rams, the Browns.
Yeah.
And the Jags if they win the division, and the Packers if they qualify.
Well,
so to keep the streak going,
up into 30 burgers with Joe Flacco.
Okay, so Detroit clinched their division for the first time since 1993. Laws, when they did that, it was week 8. It was week 18 because they did 2 byes that year. Weirdly, 1993 they had 2 byes. So they beat the Packers in week 18 that year, clinched the division heading into the playoffs, and then promptly lost at the Pontiac Silverdome, rest in power, to the same Packers on that same field. If you go back and look at all the times Detroit's clinched the division, they always clinched it in the last week, except you go back to 1953. They clinched the Western Division with 1 week to go. So they played a regular season game as division champs, which they did against your Cowboys 2 days ago. And that was the last time they'd done that. 1953, your NFL championship game, Detroit Lions, Cleveland Browns. Time is a flat circle.
That's why he's here, guys. It's not just the gym knowledge. It's not just the usually tone. Non-blue. Yeah, it's not.
Which if I do this, I even out.
It's not the variety of musical and cultural pulls that he's able to draw from. It's that deep understanding and appreciation of the rich tapestry of football history that he brings to the show. Phil, it's been a long one.
Plum and Jim Brown.
Yeah. Well, you want to go there, and I'm pulling out Eric B. and Raheem. But Phil, it's been a long one, but it's been a good one. I feel like we started 2024. Just saying that enough is enough to make me feel nice and old on a strong note. But as we do, we pluck a.
I don't make this. I don't make transfer people.
We're going to pluck some sort of vessel, some sort of vehicle, some sort of transportation unit from the world, and we're going to land this thing. Phil, maybe are we parking the bus today? What are we doing? How are we getting out of here?
It's 2024. We are landing our spaceship. I mean, when you and I were growing up in the 90s, or like 2024, gosh, I'm going to be living on the moon by then. By the way,
Correct.
ticket prices for the 1953 NFL Championship game ranged from $3 to $7 US.
So more expensive than a Panthers game, huh?
Yeah, geez, yeah. Don't even adjust.
Without inflation. Without inflation.
Okay, Laz. Landing our spaceship.
Yeah.
Our electric vehicle. Guys, it's been enjoyable. Laz and I were chatting yesterday. We're like, what the hell are we going to talk about without a game to lead into? And that was fun. Thank you for hanging out with us for 75 minutes. We'll do it same time next week. At point at which Laurie Horesh, Rough Rider 88, Vaku's Cowboy, we will know the regular season will be done. Next time we all convene, regular season's over with. We'll be looking ahead to playoffs. And then the week after that, flex, I'll be doing the show from site at the wild card round of the playoffs. The 4v5 game could well be Eagles-Bucks, could be Eagles-Saints if the Panthers are keen for a little upset. Could be Browns-Jags in Jacksonville. It's going to be a 4-5 game. I'm rambling. The Rose Bowl's on. There's good football all day and basketball on ESPN. The Nuggets are reigning champs. You can watch them as well. Multi-screen it, multi-view it, but it is 2024. My first chance to express gratitude for you joining us here every week on the NFL Brekkie Show. We do a few iterations of this left to and through Super Bowl 58, which, Laz, is 6 weeks from yesterday. It's coming up so fast. But we've been doing this for 17 weeks. Now is the real meat. Now's where history's made. He's Laurie Horesh. I'm Phil Murphy. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you same time, same place, probably the same device next week.